Of all the challenges facing our ancient ancestors, perhaps none was as urgent or as universal as keeping a newborn alive. Today we have pediatricians, formula, incubators, and child-proofed homes. Prehistoric parents had none of that, and yet the species survived, generation after generation, in ice ages, droughts, and dangerous landscapes full of predators. So how did it actually work? The answer isn't luck. It's a combination of biology, social structure, and hard-won practical knowledge passed down over hundreds of thousands of years. Understanding how ancient babies survived tells us a great deal about how early humans lived, cooperated, and adapted to a world that offered no safety nets at all. The first line of defense wasn't a tool or a shelter, it was proximity. Anthropological studies of surviving hunter-gatherer societies like the Hadza of Tanzania or the Akung of the Kalahari show that infants were almost never set down. They were carried constantly, against the skin, wrapped in hides or slings, day and night. This constant contact regulated the baby's body temperature, encouraged frequent nursing, and kept the infant safe from ground-level hazards, biting insects, cold earth, or a curious predator. Breast milk was the only real food source for the first year or more, and mothers nursed on demand, sometimes dozens of times a day. This wasn't a parenting philosophy, it was simply what survival required. Crucially, infant care was never a solo job. Evolutionary anthropologists use the term cooperative breeding to describe how early human groups raised children. Mothers relied heavily on what researchers call alloparents, grandmothers, aunts, older siblings, and other group members who helped carry, feed, and watch over babies. This mattered enormously because a nursing mother could not always hunt, gather, or flee danger quickly while holding an infant. A wider support network meant a baby was rarely unguarded. Some researchers argue the shared caregiving system is actually part of why humans evolved such long childhoods and large social groups in the first place. Raising a human child, then as now, took far more than two hands. Protecting an infant from the environment was a constant, practical challenge. In colder climates, babies were wrapped in soft, worked animal hides, sometimes lined with moss or dried grass, which acted as an early form of insulation and, effectively, a diaper. Archaeologists have found bone needles dating back over 40,000 years, evidence that early humans were sewing fitted, warm clothing rather than simply draping skins. This mattered enormously for infant survival in Ice Age conditions, where hypothermia was a real and constant threat. Shelter placement mattered too. Camps were often positioned near the back of caves or inside sturdy huts, keeping the youngest members of the group shielded from wind, rain, and the worst of the cold. Illness and injury pose a much harder problem since prehistoric groups had no antibiotics and no formal medicine. But they weren't helpless either. Evidence from burial sites and studies of traditional societies show a working knowledge of herbal remedies, certain plants for fevers, others for digestive troubles, and some for wound care. Communities also seem to have understood the basics of hygiene, keeping infants away from waste and spoiled food. Even so, infant mortality was extremely high by modern standards, likely somewhere between a third and half of all children didn't reach adulthood. This wasn't due to neglect. It reflects just how dangerous the ancient world genuinely was, and it's exactly why cooperative round-the-clock care made us away from waste and spoiled food. As infants grew into toddlers, their care shifted again. Older children in the group often took on real responsibility, watching younger siblings while adults hunted, gathered, or made tools nearby. This wasn't neglectful babysitting, it was an efficient system, since young children could still call for help instantly if anything went wrong. Play itself had a purpose too. Mock foraging, pretend tool use, and physical games built coordination, social bonds, and practical skills long before a child was old enough to contribute seriously to the group. In this way, the entire camp functioned as a kind of living nursery, where nearly everyone had a role in keeping the youngest members alive and learning. So how did ancient babies survive without modern medicine, incubators, or formula? Not through any single invention, but through a dense web of behaviors, constant physical contact, shared caregiving across the group, practical clothing and shelter, herbal knowledge, and a social structure built around protecting the smallest and most vulnerable. It was inefficient by modern standards, and it came at a real human cost. But it worked well enough to carry our species through ice ages, migrations, and constant danger. In many ways, the reason you exist at all is because thousands of generations of parents, and the people around them, figured out how to keep a baby alive with nothing but hands, hides, fire, and each other. Though, the next time you drizzle honey into your tea without a second thought, spare a moment for the countless early humans who got there first, with sticky hands, watering eyes, and a few unfortunate stings to show for it. It's a small, sweet reminder that some of humanity's oldest habits weren't really about survival at all. Sometimes, then as now, it was simply about wanting something delicious badly enough to risk getting stung for it.